A month ago, my dad shared a melodramatic tale about his first love who left 25 years ago and has now returned with her daughter.
I want you to agree to let them into our home.
No way.
Staying calm in any situation is my usual style, and this was no exception. The only thing that mattered to me at that moment was the major project I'd been working on for nearly 6 months. Since my firm refusal, my dad hadn't mentioned it again. I thought he had given up on this foolish idea because of my opposition. Little did I know he had a backup plan for today's celebration banquet.
Everyone, I have an announcement to make.
He intended to force me to accept them by publicly announcing their identities. Unfortunately for him, I, Emily, am naturally rebellious and will never be coerced.
Do you think you deserve to call yourself my sister?
Jessica didn't expect me to embarrass her in public, and she hid behind my dad, looking aggrieved.
Emily, she's your sister. How can you speak like that?
Oh? So, Dad, you mean that because she's older, she should take over as the eldest daughter of the Shen family?
As soon as I said this, I saw a glimmer of hope in Jessica's eyes. But then I changed my tone.
I wonder if the uncles and elders present would agree?
The board members exchanged glances, but no one spoke. The answer was obvious. After all, I, Emily, was the one who had revived Shen Corporation and made it a leading company in Yunqing. Who would be foolish enough to offend me, their benefactor, for an unknown daughter? Seeing my dad defeated, Jessica's mother, Linda, became anxious and put on a pitiful act.
Emily, don't blame your father. It's our fault. We'll leave.
Linda thought she could gain sympathy this way. Little did she know that my next words would leave them in utter embarrassment.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
In the end, they had no choice but to leave the banquet reluctantly with my dad. In just 3 years, I had transformed Shen Corporation from an obscure small company into a leading conglomerate in Yunqing. I've faced all kinds of challenges.
Everyone, don't let those irrelevant people affect your mood. Let's continue.
I raised my glass of red wine and drank it in one gulp. After several rounds of drinks, my cheeks were flushed, and I was slightly tipsy. After seeing off the board members, I strolled along the riverside to clear my head. My mom passed away unexpectedly when I was in middle school. Over the years, my dad had raised me single-handedly. Before this incident, he was at least a good father in my eyes. But now, this good father was forcing me to accept a suddenly appearing sister and her mother, who wanted to move in. Just 3 days ago, I learned that my dad and Linda had registered their marriage. Even Jessica had hurriedly changed her surname to Shen. When the Shen family was struggling, they were nowhere to be seen. Now that the Shen family was thriving, they suddenly appeared, playing the role of a loving family. Anyone with a discerning eye could see their intentions. The amusing part was that my dad naively believed they had suffered all these years and was eager to compensate them. No wonder he had managed Shen Corporation into such a dismal state before. Even Jessica had hurriedly changed her surname to Shen. When the Shen family was struggling, they were nowhere to be seen. Now that the Shen family was thriving, they suddenly appeared, playing the role of a loving family. Anyone with a discerning eye could see their intentions.
The amusing part was that my dad naively believed they had suffered all these years and was eager to compensate them. No wonder he had managed Shen Corporation into such a dismal state before.
Even Jessica had hurriedly changed her surname to Shen.
When the Shen family was struggling, they were nowhere to be seen. Now that the Shen family is thriving, they suddenly appear, playing the role of a loving family.
Anyone with a discerning eye could see their intentions. The amusing part was that my dad naively believed they had suffered all these years and was eager to compensate them. No wonder he had managed Sheng Corporation into such a dismal state before. It took me less than half a minute to assess the risks of pretending to date John.
It seemed like there weren't any risks. And it wouldn't be a loss either.
Feigning calmness, I lowered my head slightly and coughed softly.
Maybe we could give it a try.
John's Adam's apple moved instinctively, his sharp gaze barely concealing his surprise. A fleeting joy appeared in his eyes.
So, does this mean I've conquered the ultimate 10-star difficulty project, Miss Emily?
Wait. Did this man just refer to me as a project? Before I could retort, John suddenly pressed his passionate kiss against me. The kiss was urgent yet gentle, our lips intertwining more intensely with each passing moment. When the kiss finally ended, John's large hand still held the back of my head firmly, unwilling to let go. With our foreheads touching, John gently brushed his nose against mine.
Emily, lipstick should be applied like this.
John's warm breath rhythmically caressed my face, making my cheeks flush and my heart race.
I'll take your luggage home first. Remember to call me after work, and I'll come pick you up.
Even though we had just confirmed our relationship, John's words made it seem like we were an old married couple picking each other up from work.
Damn it. I've been in the business world for so long, how could I be so easily swayed by John? No, I need to regain the upper hand.
After work, John picked me up and took me to his apartment. The apartment was located on the top floor of a luxurious residential area in the city center, offering a stunning view of the city's nightscape.
However, the decor was different from what I had imagined. A CEO's house in novels is always decorated in cold, abstinent tones of black, white, and gray, right? But looking around, the spacious apartment was decorated in warm tones, making it feel especially cozy and comfortable.
A year ago, when I was renovating, I thought you might like this style, so I had someone design it. How is it? Not bad, right?
So you were certain we'd end up together a year ago?
John took a few steps forward, gently embracing me from behind and holding me in his arms.
Emily, this is our marital home.
I didn't expect John to be such a cunning old fox, with such deep thoughts. 3 days later, it was John's grandfather's 80th birthday, and almost all the prominent families in the city attended. At the Sheng family's old residence, the guests gathered, and the atmosphere was lively. When I attended with John, it caused quite a stir.
Hey, isn't the eldest daughter of the Shen family and the heir of the Sheng family always at odds? How come they're attending together today?
Exactly, ever since the engagement, the eldest daughter of the Shen family has never appeared in the same frame as her fiancé from the Sheng family.
Although the murmurs were quiet, I heard every word as I passed by. The bold declarations I made back then now seemed like a slap in the face. Seeing us appear hand in hand, looking close, John's parents and grandfather were all smiles. After greeting the elders of the Sheng family, I immediately spotted two particularly eye-catching figures in the crowd. John gently held my waist and looked in the direction I was staring.
Emily, what's wrong?
Come on, let's go catch some troublemakers.
Without looking back, I pulled John along, lifting the hem of my dress as we walked straight towards them.
I've long heard that Mr. Sheng is elegant and extraordinary. Seeing him today, he surpasses the rumors. Linda, come and say hello.
Hello, Mr. Sheng. I'm Linda from Shen Corporation.
Before they even approached, Jessica and Linda's voices could be heard. From a distance, I had vaguely seen two figures in red and purple, and indeed, it was them. Of course, at a banquet full of elites and dignitaries, only they would have such taste.
Who is that Mr. Sheng?
David, my uncle's son, a notorious playboy.
Seeing the mother and daughter duo's stance, it was clear that they had given up on John and immediately switched targets.
How long has it been since they changed their surname? And now they're already using Shen Corporation's name?
I walked gracefully in a delicate, luxurious light blue strapless dress. Seeing John and me approaching, the surrounding guests also gathered around.
Emily, I know you don't like us, but it was Dad who asked us to come today.
Ha, what a white lotus, always playing the weak and pitiful in front of others. Seeing my assertiveness, Jessica subtly moved closer to David, as if seeking a safe haven. With a beauty in his arms, David was also bewitched and spoke up for her, seeing her pitiful and aggrieved look.
Miss Shen, are you trying to embarrass your sister and family elders in public?
I was about to teach this David a lesson when John spoke up before me.
Does Uncle usually teach you to speak to your future sister-in-law with such an attitude?
Only then did David realize that John was also present. Since this big shot had made his stance clear, he wouldn't be foolish enough to offend the Sheng family heir for a woman he had just met.
Big brother.
Seeing David at a disadvantage, Linda immediately put on a frightened look.
Emily, don't be angry. If you don't like us, we'll leave.
She even wiped her tears with her hand adorned with 3 large gold rings, pretending to pull Jessica away. But after a while, they still hadn't moved an inch. I couldn't be bothered to watch their act any longer. I glanced at Linda with disdain and impatience.
Grandpa Sheng usually prefers simplicity, respects nature, and values life. Yet, you dare to flaunt in bright red and purple, and even wear white fox fur to the banquet? If you want to use Shen Corporation's name, don't disgrace the Shen family.
As soon as I finished speaking, everyone's eyes fell on Linda. She was wearing a bright red cheongsam with numerous gold and pearl accessories, looking like a nouveau riche. And her outer shawl was indeed made of white fox fur. Who among the guests wasn't looking to establish connections with the Sheng family for business? Daring to go against Grandpa Sheng's preferences and dressing like this at his birthday banquet, they must be tired of living. Under the scrutiny of the surrounding guests, Linda and Jessica were so embarrassed they wished they could find a hole to crawl into.
Do you think changing your appearance and dressing like a human will turn a sparrow into a phoenix? Don't be so naive.
The next second, Jessica was so angry that she clenched her fists tightly, her nails almost digging into her flesh. I elegantly turned around, lifting my dress slightly with one hand and linking arms with John as we left, leaving the crowd to continue their gossip. Some things Jessica would never learn in her lifetime.
Do you think I was a bit aggressive?
John and I strolled in the back garden, seeking a moment of peace.
Just do what you want to do. I've got your back.
A warm feeling flowed through my heart, and I hugged him tightly. A few days later, I went to work early as usual. But as soon as I entered the Shen Corporation building, the secretary informed me that my dad was waiting for me in his office.
I had a bad feeling about this.
Sure enough, when I walked into the office, besides my dad, Jessica was also there.
From today, Jessica will be working in the project department. Take good care of her.
Jessica sat there with a smug look on her face. I calmly took out my phone and opened the morning's trending news.
Shen Corporation's illegitimate daughter exposed, attends Sheng family banquet with birth mother, outfit sparks controversy. Former Shen Corporation chairman remarries, illegitimate daughter flaunts luxury goods on social media.
I put down my phone and looked at my dad's now livid face, crossing my arms and smirking.
Perhaps Dad isn't aware of their reputation outside? Do you need me to read it out in detail?
My dad, who always valued his reputation, couldn't hold back his anger any longer.
What have you and your mother been doing lately? Shen Corporation has finally managed to establish itself in Yun City, and now you're causing trouble?
Dad, it's all fabricated by the media. I didn't do any of it.
Obviously, such a feeble explanation wouldn't easily convince my dad. Seeing the unfavorable situation, Jessica resorted to her usual tactic, playing the victim.
Dad, Mom and I have suffered for over 20 years. We've never had a good life, and no one ever taught me how to dress for a banquet. I just wanted to present my best self and not embarrass you.
As she spoke, tears streamed down her face. She knew my dad's nature too well, he was soft-hearted. Jessica's tears triggered his guilt again, making him feel he owed them.
All right, let's not dwell on the past. From today, Jessica will stay in the company. Emily, teach your sister well.
Teach? How? Dad, do you think she can grasp these complex business concepts just like that? Finance, management, operations, planning, which one are you proficient in? You think you can just parachute into the company without any skills, Jessica?
Jessica's face turned a bit red with embarrassment, but it was true, she knew nothing.
I can learn. I heard from Dad that Shen Corporation is currently planning a resort project, but the progress has stalled because the previous partner backed out. I have a way to complete the remaining work with the least cost and time.
I looked at Jessica, who was confidently patting her chest. If I hadn't been handling this project myself, I might have believed her.
Impossible.
Why not? You can't make progress now anyway, so why not let your sister try?
My dad had a lot of confidence in his daughter. I didn't want to argue with them any longer.
Since Dad believes in you so much, I'll let you try. If you can really handle it, Shen Corporation is yours to stay. But if you mess it up, you'll bear the consequences.
I wanted to see what Jessica could do with a project that even I found challenging. After a long day, I collapsed onto the couch as soon as I got home, not wanting to move. A rich aroma wafted in from the kitchen. Despite my reluctance, the growling in my stomach urged me to follow the scent. In the kitchen, the usually aloof and decisive Mr. John was wearing an apron, cooking. To be more precise, he was cooking for me. There was a certain satisfaction in seeing this high and mighty figure brought down to earth.
John, what's cooking?
I walked up behind John and wrapped my arms around his lean, well-toned waist.
The kitchen is smoky. Go wash your hands and get ready to eat.
By the time I had changed clothes and washed my hands, John was already seated at the dining table, waiting for me. 3 dishes and a soup, no matter how many times I tasted Mr. John's cooking, it always amazed me. After finishing a whole bowl of rice with a satisfied look on my face, I flopped back onto the couch. John pulled out a napkin and came over to wipe the corner of my mouth.
Today, my dad arranged for Jessica to join the company and even handed her the resort project.
Emily, you have the final say in Shen Corporation now. If you don't like her, you can simply refuse.
I felt a bit frustrated, my eyes dimming.
Although I hate to admit it, she is still my father's daughter. If she and her mother behaved themselves, I wouldn't mind. But neither of them is easy to deal with. My mom passed away 10 years ago. If Linda truly had lingering feelings, why didn't she bring her daughter to find my dad earlier? It's because Shen Corporation was struggling back then, and they didn't want to suffer along with us.
John turned his face and raised an eyebrow with a smile.
Since the Shen family has so many troubles, why don't we get married soon, and you can join Shen Corporation to help me?
I quickly turned and sat on John's lap, pinching his cheeks with both hands.
Dream on! I worked hard to revive Shen Corporation. I won't let Jessica take it so easily.
Seeing me so agitated, John suddenly sat up straight from the couch, closing the distance between us. He held my waist firmly, pressing me down on his lap and looking straight at me.
Emily, that wasn't the main point of what I said.
The main point? I quickly replayed John's words in my mind and suddenly realized. Marriage? Seeing John's expectant expression, I became even more certain of my thoughts.
Let's see how you perform. Pretending to be calm.
I immediately tried to slip away. But John anticipated my move and held me tightly. Alone in a room with him, and sitting on his lap in such an intimate position. Although we had been living together for a while, John and I had always slept in separate rooms and never crossed the line. At this moment, John's eyes seemed to burn with a fierce fire, making me feel hot all over.
Emily, you can't escape.
John whispered in my ear, his hot breath making me shiver. Then, a series of kisses fell, filled with possessiveness and desire. From my ear to my neck, and then to my lips. John seemed to be losing control, perhaps unable to restrain himself any longer after suppressing his feelings for so long.
I tried to suppress my nervousness and responded to him.
Feeling my response, John's breathing became heavier, and he lifted me up with his strong arms, carrying me to the bedroom.
No one else can take the position of Mrs. John.
The next morning, I woke up feeling sore all over, as if I had been beaten.
Awake?
John was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, sipping coffee. When he saw me wake up, he came over and ruffled my hair.
John, are you made of iron?
I slapped his arm in frustration.
I'll be gentler next time.
Next time, my foot. After freshening up, my morning grumpiness finally subsided a bit. John asked me to go to Sheng Corporation with him to help review the details of a newly acquired project. Seeing me appear, the employees of Sheng Corporation all had their eyes light up, their gossiping spirits burning brightly. Since confirming my relationship with John, I had gradually gotten used to the surprised looks from others. But John, this man, always stuck to me like glue. He was either holding my hand or wrapping his arm around me, as if afraid someone might snatch me away. He was constantly asserting his claim. Seeing him care so much, I couldn't help but feel a bit pleased inside. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, a man and a woman appeared in front of me.
Emily?
Jessica looked a bit surprised to see me, but quickly reverted to her usual innocent facade.
Big brother.
David seemed a bit flustered seeing John and me together.
Do you need something?
Jessica is here on behalf of Shen Corporation to discuss a collaboration with Shen Corporation.
Judging by David's demeanor, it seemed Jessica had already won him over. That was fast, it had only been a few days since the last banquet.
Second young Master Sheng, you must be mistaken. As the president of Shen Corporation, I'm right here. How did it fall to Jessica to represent Shen Corporation?
Sister, Dad has given me full responsibility for the resort project.
Jessica's voice grew softer as she spoke, as if she was terrified of me.
Sister-in-law, Jessica is just handling business. Don't make it difficult for her.
The term sister-in-law was pleasant to hear, but the rest of his words were quite grating.
Since you call me sister-in-law, I'll be blunt. Jessica just wants to secure a collaboration with Shen Corporation to attract investment for the resort's dining facilities. But she hasn't even resolved the breach of contract with the previous partner. Now she wants to drag Shen Corporation into this mess? If she's being foolish, do you have to follow suit?
My tone carried a hint of sarcasm. These two were both unskilled and spent their days dreaming of family wealth without any real ability. In that sense, they were quite a match.
Emily! Don't be so ungrateful.
David was infuriated by my words and cursed out loud. John stepped forward and grabbed David by the collar, a hint of menace in his eyes.
Emily is my fiancée. I suggest you watch your words. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to tell Grandpa and Uncle about your gambling and fighting. Do you think Sheng family will tolerate you then?
David turned pale with fear. He didn't know why he had blurted out those words in a moment of anger. He might be fearless outside, but his big brother was a decisive and ruthless person. If he angered John, he might really be kicked out of Sheng family.
From today on, you don't need to come to the company. Holding a nominal position without doing any real work, Sheng Corporation doesn't support idlers.
John said this and then took my hand, ready to head back to the office. Jessica had thought that with David around, John would at least give them some face. As long as she secured the collaboration with Sheng Corporation, her father would surely look at her differently. Then she could establish herself firmly in Sheng Corporation. But she had clearly overestimated David's standing in Sheng family. A hedonistic playboy like him would never be taken seriously by Sheng family. Jessica and David were about to leave after their confrontation.
Raising her hand slightly.
Wait, what's that on your wrist? How did my mom's bracelet end up with you?
Let go of me. Dad gave this to me. What are you talking about?
Dad gave it to you? But this bracelet belonged to my mom.
Emily, are you now resorting to taking things from me? I told you, Dad gave it to me. If you don't believe me, ask him yourself.
I felt a mix of emotions, an indescribable discomfort.
Emily, are you okay?
This concerns my mom. I need to go back.
Do you want me to go with you?
No, I can handle it.
I turned to Jessica, suppressing my anger.
Come back with me now, or forget about stepping into Shen Corporation again. I mean it.
Jessica was a bit intimidated. She knew I held absolute power in Shen Corporation and wasn't joking.
Fine, I'll go. I want Dad to judge this.
Half an hour later, Jessica and I arrived at the Shen family villa. My dad and Linda were sitting in the yard, chatting and enjoying tea, looking quite relaxed. Seeing Jessica and me appear together, they were both taken aback.
Dad, Emily is bullying me. She has so many pieces of jewelry, yet she wants to take the bracelet you gave me.
How did my mom's jade bracelet end up with Jessica?
My dad looked a bit guilty but tried to stay calm.
Your sister liked the bracelet, so I gave it to her. I didn't recognize whose it was.
Didn't recognize it? This is the bracelet my mom wore almost every day since Grandpa gave it to her at your wedding. How could you not recognize it?
Emily, watch your tone. The bracelet was just sitting there. Your sister liked it, so she took it. What's the big deal? We're family, aren't we?
It was my mom who had stood by the Shen family through thick and thin, yet in the end, even her favorite bracelet was casually given away by her own husband.
Oh, Emily, don't be angry. Jessica hasn't had a good life these years. It's natural for her to like these things. She doesn't know better. Don't be mad at your dad.
What a disgusting pair of mother and daughter.
It's just a stupid bracelet. I don't even want something a dead person wore.
Jessica's words were barely out when I slapped her hard. The force of the slap knocked Jessica to the ground, her face swelling visibly with a clear handprint.
Emily, how dare you hit me?
Jessica clutched her face, tears streaming down from the pain.
You ungrateful girl, are you trying to kill me?
My dad scolded me while helping Jessica up, a scene that was utterly ridiculous. I couldn't be bothered to argue further. I put the bracelet into my bag.
Jessica, consider this slap a light punishment. You and your mom have schemed to climb up the Shen family for a lifetime of wealth and glory. If you want Shen Corporation so badly, I'll give it to you. Let's see how capable you really are.
Even Jessica had hurriedly changed her surname to Shen. When the Shen family was struggling, they were nowhere to be seen. Now that the Shen family was thriving, they suddenly appeared, playing the role of a loving family. Anyone with a discerning eye could see their intentions. The amusing part was that my dad naively believed they had suffered all these years and was eager to compensate them. No wonder he had managed Shen Corporation into such a dismal state before. 2 days later, John and I drove to the Shen family home. I hadn't planned on going so soon, but after months of investigation, the truth had finally surfaced. Now, I couldn't wait to expose Jessica and her mother's true colors.
What are you doing here?
Jessica greeted me with an air of superiority. Even at the brink of exposure, she still put on that haughty demeanor. Who was she trying to impress?
Aren't you happy to see me back? Finally, someone to clean up your mess.
Hearing voices at the door, my father arrived quickly. Seeing John and me standing at the entrance, he welcomed us with a smile.
My dear, you finally decided to come home. Come in.
Seeing Jessica and her mother comfortably staying at home, it was clear my father was testing me. He was betting that I wouldn't let Shen Corporation fall apart. My father knew me well in this regard, but I was serious about kicking Jessica and her mother out.
Seems like you didn't take my words seriously, Dad.
I sipped the juice in front of me. My father knew exactly what I meant, but seeing me come home voluntarily, he wanted to test me one last time.
The priority is to solve the company's issues. As long as you step in, the old shareholders will give face. If they don't withdraw their investments, everything will be fine.
I looked at Linda and Jessica, who were sitting calmly on the sofa, without a hint of guilt. Beating around the bush wasn't my style. I glanced at John.
Uncle Shen, you should take a look at what's inside first.
John handed a file to my father. My father opened the file with a puzzled look, and the next second, dozens of photos came into view. The photos showed Linda and Jessica with a middle-aged man in various settings, from public places to their doorstep. In almost every photo, the three of them were smiling happily, like a perfect family. The moment Linda and Jessica saw the photos, they were visibly shaken.
These are fake. You had someone doctor them.
Watching Linda's frantic state, I turned to Jessica, who was too scared to speak.
You should know very well whether these photos are real or not, Jessica.
Hearing me call her by her former name, Jessica couldn't sit still, trembling with fear.
What is this?
My father was furious, throwing the photos at Linda and Jessica. Linda fell to her knees in fright, clinging to my father's leg and denying everything.
Honey, let me explain. These are all fake, fabricated by Emily to frame us.
I had these photos investigated for Emily. If Uncle Shen doesn't believe it, you can have them authenticated to see if there's any tampering.
With John's words, my father looked at Linda in disbelief.
You wretch! What is going on here?
Terrified, Linda couldn't muster the courage to explain, repeatedly insisting the photos were fake. I picked up a scattered photo, the three of them smiling brightly.
Dad, you really think they were destitute for over 20 years? You felt guilty, but they were living it up as the mistress and daughter of a wealthy man. Why didn't Linda come to you when she was pregnant? Isn't it suspicious? She claimed she didn't want to burden you, but she had already latched onto a wealthy man named Meng while still with you. As for whose child Jessica is, even she might not know. Back then, when your business failed, she left you to be with the man in the photos, giving birth to Jessica and living as his mistress for over 20 years. Unfortunately, last year, the man's wife caught them, collected these photos, and did a paternity test. Only then did Linda realize Jessica was your daughter. After being kicked out, they found out Shen Corporation was thriving in Yun City and hurried back to you. Dad, do you still believe in the fairy tale of a first love raising a child alone, struggling for over 20 years, and reuniting with you to rekindle old flames?
My father clutched his chest, his anger boiling over, and kicked Linda to the ground.
You deceitful woman! How dare you lie to me? Get out! Both of you!
Seeing that things had fallen apart, Linda tried to use Jessica as leverage.
No matter what, Jessica is your biological daughter. You can't deny her. She deserves a share of the Shen family's assets.
What good does it do to tell my father that? Can't you see the current situation? Without me, do you still dream of the good old days?
This remark seemed to wake my father up, and he immediately tried to appease me.
Emily, you are still a daughter of the Shen family. You can't just stand by and do nothing.
Uncle Shen, Emily is already recognized as the daughter-in-law of the Sheng family. Even without Shen Corporation, I would still marry her. But you know my fiancée, she doesn't tolerate any nonsense. You should carefully consider which daughter you want.
John's words were a clear reminder to my father that if he didn't drive Linda and Jessica out today, he would lose everything, while I would still be the daughter-in-law of the Sheng family. Seeing this, I remained silent, implicitly agreeing with John's statement.
You have 2 hours to pack your things and leave the Shen family. Don't let me see you again.
It seemed my father wasn't entirely foolish after all. Linda and Jessica, seeing my father's ruthlessness, began to curse him loudly, shedding their previously feigned gentleness and virtue. This thoroughly enraged my father, who ordered the servants to pack their belongings and throw them out, forcibly expelling them from the house.
Emily, I was foolish before, easily believing that deceitful woman. From now on, you are my only daughter. You mustn't abandon the Shen family.
My father held my hand with a kind expression, afraid that I would leave him. Looking at my father, I suddenly felt a sense of unfamiliarity. If I didn't have the ability to save the Shen family, I would have been the one kicked out today. In my father's eyes, it seemed that interests outweighed everything. He had casually given away my late mother's jade bracelet, and from that moment, he no longer deserved to be my father. A month later, I resolved all the troubles Jessica had caused and once again saved Shen Corporation from disaster. The board members of Shen Corporation were finally relieved to see me return. After this incident, I became quite the sensation in Yun City once more. But this time, it wasn't because I had heroically saved the company and brought it back on track. It was because John, feeling neglected as I busied myself with Shen Corporation's affairs, couldn't wait to move up our wedding date. He even proposed to me publicly at a business gala in Yun City. Sheng family's heir proposes to Shen family's eldest daughter, a perfect match. This headline stayed on the trending list for an entire day. Looking at the large diamond ring on my ring finger, I felt quite pleased.
So, Mr. Sheng, are you forcing me into marriage?
If I don't push you a bit, you'll forget all about getting married.
Is it because I'm too beautiful that you fell in love with me at first sight and couldn't wait to get engaged?
You got it half right. Before you took over Shen Corporation, I had never failed. But I didn't expect a young woman like you to snatch a project I had been eyeing for half a year.
I moved back a bit to put some distance between us and threw a cushion at him.
You didn't get engaged to me just to get back at me, did you?
No, I thought that a beautiful and capable girl like you would make a perfect partner. If we joined forces, we could conquer the business world and create a legendary story.
Are you looking for a wife or a business partner?
I moved closer to teach him a lesson. John anticipated my move and held me tightly.
It's too late for regrets now. Everyone knows you're my wife.
Years later, our son James, who was in college, told me he was in a relationship. His girlfriend was the top student in her department, had won numerous awards at a young age, and had a bright future. I asked him why he liked this girl, and James said,
She's beautiful and talented. Why let such a good opportunity slip away? Together, we can create our own success.
John laughed heartily beside me. I couldn't help but think to myself, why does that sound so familiar?